Welcome back, guys. This is episode 7, and yeah, that's my son. He's definitely looking pretty jacked, and he thought it was pretty cool that he looked like his uncle Berto. So yeah, same hairline, which is pretty interesting, but yeah, they're both pretty shredded there. But let's get you guys caught up to speed with my prep. So the last couple of weeks have gone well and not well at the same time. So basically at the end of last week, I really kind of hit a snag. Basically, I think the overall deficit, the demand of the training, plus work and life itself, like that overall demand just got pretty high, and I had a really grueling RDL session last Friday that basically I think just basically tipped me over the edge. And after that training session, I got out of my gym and walked into the house, and I told my wife, I go, I'm like completely wrecked. And she's like, I can see it all over your face. And she's a really honest person. Like, she'll basically just tell you how it is. And she just said, hey, you're wrecked. And when she says something like that, then I know, okay, yeah, I need to basically try to tip the scales the other way, and get that supply up and bring my overall demand down. So that's basically how this week has gone. I changed my approach this week with my training, and I changed my approach with my cardio a little bit. Food levels, been keeping it the same. Like, I'm not changing my food levels. Again, last week the demand was pretty high. It was a good productive week as far as fat loss. I was able to lose a pound on the average last week, and it's really good to see the scale kind of trending down. But I also got that visual reassurance. I was actually starting to look a little bit leaner, so that was a good feeling. That was a good thing. But again, the overall demand, though, the deficit and all the other factors that I mentioned earlier, it just kind of like wore me down. So I basically took 3 refeeds this past weekend. So I took Friday, Saturday, Sunday, took 3 fairly assertive refeeds. I didn't train on those days. I didn't do any cardio on those days. It was just like, okay, let me rest and let me eat, let me recharge those batteries so I could basically keep plugging away at this. And I think the biggest challenge, I think I mentioned this in the last vlog, the biggest challenge for me, not so much training. Like, training has just been exceptionally awesome with this prep. But it's more along the lines of fat loss. Like, for me, I'm just a very sedentary person. I sit here at my desk for many hours of the day. I really don't have a high step count. I average anywhere between 2,000 to 3,000 on most days. Sometimes I can get it up to 3,500. Maybe the weekends I might get it up to like 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, just because we're out and about a little bit. Generally the weekends I don't work. Those are my off days, so I get out of the house a little bit more and get my step count up. But I mean, relatively speaking, that is a very, very low step count, and I'm very inactive. So I basically, have to get after it, with cardio. And even with doing 5-6 sessions of cardio, the last 3 weeks or so, I'm only seeing like maybe half a pound on the average. Like, last week I got a pound off on the average. The week before that was like, maybe a half a pound. And so far this week, it's about the same. But this week I decided that, okay, I need to change my approach a little bit. Like, if I want to, expedite fat loss a little bit more, and at the same time not run myself into the ground like I did last week, something's got to give. So I'm like, okay, if I decide to lower food down, that might be counterproductive because I'm already eating like a bird as it is. So if I eat even less, that might make me move even less, just because there's not that much fuel coming in. So it could potentially get me a little more lethargic, and that's the last thing I want to do, is like to move even less than I already am. So that's why I'm kind of relying more on cardio to get myself moving more. So I ramped the cardio up this week, and when I say ramp it up, I mean I'm still sticking with my my 5 to 6 sessions a week, but I'm going to be doing AM and PM sessions. And I know some people are going to hear that and go, oh my gosh, you sound like one of those horror stories you see on the internet where you're a cardio bunny. You're doing a shit ton of cardio. You're not eating that much. But again, my reality is when I'm only moving like 2,000 steps a day, 3,000 steps a day, I'm not burning that many calories. So, for me to jump on my recumbent bike in the morning, for 50 minutes, and casually pedaling, it's not like I'm doing high intensity cardio. It's pretty low impact, low intensity. It's easy to perform. It's not hard to recover from. And generally, I train in the afternoons, and when I go in to train, like, energy is usually not an issue. Like even though that cardio session in the morning, I'm doing that. Like, I don't experience, like, when I go to train, like, I'm feeling like terrible, because after my morning cardio, I'd be sure to get in, a meal. I'm getting in, that meal, anywhere between 5 to 7 grams of fat, about 50 to 60 grams of carbs and 40 grams of protein. And then I eat again around lunchtime, about noon. And then that's where I kind of load up on my carbs. Like, I'll usually eat anywhere between 80 to 100 grams of carbohydrate for that second meal. So that way, when I train around 2:33 in the afternoon, it's had plenty of time to digest and I'm ready to go. Like, there's available energy there to train on. So what I've been doing this week is training in the afternoon. Then immediately after my training, I'm getting in about 30 more minutes on my recumbent bike. And again, it's nothing crazy, just casually pedaling, just getting myself moving more, working up a decent sweat. And then after I'm done with that, I immediately eat my dinner, which is, again, in the neighborhood of like 10 fat, anywhere between 40 to 60 carbs, and then another 40 grams of protein. And then I eat again right around 8 o'clock. So, I'm getting in enough food, at the right times to kind of help fuel my activity level and to recover from it. So this week I've been doing that. It's been working well thus far, seeing like visual changes already just after a few days of doing this. And I feel better. Like, I feel more energetic, which is kind of weird, right? You would think, like, doing all that cardio, you would think like I'd be more tired, run down, but I actually feel more energetic. And I'm like getting to a point now where I feel motivated to actually set my alarm for 5:30 in the morning so I can get up and knock that cardio out, because I know doing that cardio is going to get me to where I want to go. So it's kind of it's not that mindset of like, oh shit, I hate cardio, I got all this cardio I got to do, I hate cardio, blah, blah, blah. It's more the opposite, where I'm like, man, I can't wait to do it and get after it, because one, I like the way it feels when I'm moving, and I like the results that I'm seeing from it. So it's basically just my way of, expending calories. It's kind of, if you think about it, it's kind of no different than, let's say, someone who has a physical job, they're hammering nails for, 8 or 9 hours a day. They're on their feet moving a hell of a lot, where I'm sitting in this chair, for hours on end, not really moving a ton. So again, if you kind of like compare it from that aspect or that perspective, it makes a little bit more sense. Now, I also knew that if I actually increase cardio, again, that's gonna take my demand up. So I figured, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna tone my training down for this new training block, and I'm gonna put that training block up so you guys kind of see it. And again, it's probably gonna shock people, like, whoa, this guy's only doing 2 exercises per session, and he's only doing 3 sets per exercise. So we're talking 6 sets per session. Are you kidding me? But the thing is that a couple things. Like, one, I know it doesn't require as much energy to maintain muscle versus, let's say, building muscle. Like, when you're building muscle, yeah, you need to basically get after it and accumulate volume over time in order to, produce results. Whereas retaining muscle, you don't need to do, let's say, as much. And I also have experience on my side and my own personal data on my side that backs this approach up. So that's the beauty of, training for 33 years and going through, gosh, I don't even know how many seasons I've been in now as far as how many preps I've ran. It's probably in the neighborhood of 14, 15 preps that I've run over the last 20 plus years. But I mean, when I go back to my contest season of 2014, a very similar approach. Lots of cardio, lower volume training, and I wouldn't say it's low volume for me. Obviously, it's low volume for a lot of other people, but relative for me, it's pretty moderate. And I could look back at that data from my 2014 prep, and I look back at the visuals, and it was my best ever season, and there was not a lack of muscle mass whatsoever. I didn't regress. I didn't see any atrophy. I might have seen a little bit of atrophy just because when you are in a prolonged diet, I mean, it's inevitable. You're going to lose some muscle size regardless of your approach. But I definitely minimized that. That was probably the best prep where I've minimized the amount of muscle I lost. So that just gives me, reassurance that by lowering my volume down now and jacking my cardio up, that I'll be okay. Because again, I could go back to my 2014 prep because of that experience. So for me, again, like 33 years of training experience, yes, I'll look externally for some answers, but a lot of answers I could find with my own data that I've created over the years. So that's a nice feeling to have. But yeah, things with training are going really well. So again, by only doing 2 movements, in a given session, for the majority of my sessions anyways, just think what my focus is like going into a training session knowing you have 2 exercises, you have 3 sets, so 3 opportunities to make shit happen. So my intensity is there, my focus is there. I'm performing exceptionally well. I've been hitting, like I said, mentioned, PRs with my RDL, the leg press, I've been hitting PRs. Floor press, I'm hitting PRs. Like all my bigger lifts, they've been moving exceptionally well. And what's really good is that I feel a lot better this week in regards to recovery. Like when I wake up in the morning, I'm not feeling as toasted as I was with my last block of training, where the volume was up a little bit higher on some of these lifts, where instead of doing 3 sets, I would work them up to, let's say, 6 or 7 sets. Like for example, on floor press, you would get up to like 6 or 7 sets, seated rows, things like that. So I just think right now I have this recipe that I'm working on right now. I think the ingredients are solid. They're based on like my own personal data and experience, and I think we just kind of see how it cooks now. We make sure it's going in the right direction. So I think right now, anyways, in comparison to last week, I have a better hold or stranglehold on that supply and demand, which is pretty important. So as long as I can keep my intensity in the gym up, and I can keep recovering well, I think this is going to be a fruitful approach. But we'll see moving ahead. But I'm going to leave it there. If you guys have any comments, questions, or anything like that, feel free to drop it below, and I'll do my best to get to them. All right, so thanks for following along, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.